Alright guys, let's move on. The next thing I'm going to do in my chat activity is I want to make it so that whenever you run this activity, this text view says online. So right now, if you come into any other activity apart from main activity, you're automatically thought to be offline. But that doesn't make sense for the chat activity, because definitely if you're chatting with someone, like right now you're sending a message to a person, that obviously means they're online. So let's add the same functionality we have in main activity, this, to our online class, to our chat activity class. So all we have to do is override two methods. The first one is onStart. And paste that in. Okay, it'll need this user DB, but I'll make that in just a moment. And then on stop. And paste that as well. Okay. So for this, for the user DB, the first thing I'll need is private string. I'm going to call this current user ID, just for the sake of differentiating it with the recipient ID. And then right where we have our root, actually I'll also need in that case a private Firebase auth so I can instantiate that down here. Auth is equals to Firebase auth dot get instance, and then current user ID is equals to auth dot get current user dot get UID. That's it. Okay, and now I can use this UID to get that database reference. So it should be global, just to be so that we don't write too much code. So private user DB, and then I'll instantiate it underneath our root is equals to root dot child users and then what I'll do, I'll leave that at that, and in our onStart I can add that next child, and the next child is of course the current user ID. So I can just copy that and paste. Okay, really quick, I'm going to test it. Okay, here's the app running. So what I'm going to do is actually something I shouldn't be able to do. I'm going to click the user that's already logged in, which is which is William. That's the user that's logged in on this emulator. And I'm going to click message. So essentially it's like I'm messaging myself, which I shouldn't be able to do, and we will add some logic to stop that. But we can see that it's working. It's showing us that we are online. One small problem though, I have mistakenly put true for both of them. So let me just change that to false. And so now we can move on to the sending messages feature. Now, to do this, the first thing we need to do is a query. So let's think about it logically. If you were to use this app for the first time, and you found a friend of yours who was also using the app, so you click on their name, you click on message, and you want to start talking with them. That would be the first time you're talking, and the database has to register that this is the first time you're talking. Now, on the other hand, if it was someone you'd already been talking to, you would enter the app, you would go to message, to their profile, you click message, and the app should already know that you guys have been talking. It shouldn't start wondering whether this is a new conversation. So that's the first thing we have to build, the ability for the app to know that. So to do that, we can come here to our on create at the very bottom, and we can say root.child, and this time we'll go into a new table called chats, and we'll say .child current user ID, and then here we have to start the query. This is where we check whether this is a new conversation or not. So new value event listener, and in here we simply do an if statement, and we query the data snapshot. So we say if data snapshot dot has child, and the child will be the ID of the person you're talking to. So that's, what did we call it? Recipient ID. Yes, recipient ID. So if data snapshot has child recipient ID, actually let's do if it does not. So if not data snapshot that has child, then what it should do is to create that child, and we'll do that using a map. So map, Alt enter, and I'll call it chat map is equals to new hash map, and for now just placeholder things, chat map dot put scene, and default will be false. I'll duplicate this, and we can say time, and for the time we'll use server value dot timestamp. Okay, we'll need another map. This one will be called chat user. So chat user dot put, and the key in this case will be rather lengthy because it has to be the path to where we want to put the data. And by that I mean, let's go to the database. So for example, let's say this was the chat. We have to start with the chat, go to the user ID, the second user ID, which is the recipient ID, and then the message. That entire thing will be the key of this chat user map. So we start with chat, and then we put a stroke, then we concatenate the current user ID plus, and then we put a stroke, and then we concatenate the recipient ID, and then we plus, and finally, oh actually that's it. Now we can put the value, and the value is the chat map. Okay, and now we have to do it for the other user as well. So this user will have such an entry, and the other user will have a similar entry but in reverse. You'll see what I mean once I do it. So again, chat, so I can copy this, and plus, this time we start with the recipient ID, and then plus, put the stroke, plus, and then the current user ID, and then chat map. So you see what happens is they both get the same thing. And if you go to the database, you'll notice that this chat, current user ID, recipient ID is the path generally inside the table, the chat table. I can't actually show it, come to think of it, because we haven't created that table yet. But no matter, we will see it as soon as we run the code. Okay, next thing we have to do is to update. So we say root, and we say update children. Now update children is the same thing as set value, but set value does it for a single entry, whereas update children you can do multiple at the same time. Like for example, scene is an entry, time is an entry, and you can do them both using update children. So we say update children, chat user, And the second argument is a completion listener that can help us know whether it's worked. So completion listener, database reference.completion listener. I'm going to terminate first, and here I'll do an if statement. And the if statement will be simply, since we have a database error that's been passed here, we can simply check if it's null. So if database error is not equals to null, then I suppose we can toast the error. So toast.makeText context, there was an error, and I suppose we can pass that error. So plus database error dot to string, although it's not best practice to show users the exact error, still it's fine for us. And then long and dot show. Okay, right? And this whole thing will check for us whether this is a new conversation or not. That's actually the main purpose of this. All right, I'm going to run this and we'll see what happens. Okay, it's running. Let's go to a user, any user. And I'm going to click message. And there we go. The chat table has been created. So let's see. We open this and we immediately get 2 entries have been created. Let's open them both up and see what's inside. So the first entry is the user ID of William, who is the person logged into this emulator. The next entry is the user ID for Imo, who was the person who's been chatted with. So here they both are, and as you can see, they follow each other. It's like the same thing in reverse. This is William followed by Imo, and this is Imo followed by William, and then they have that scene and time. So that has worked. We have managed to create the chat table, and we've managed to make it so that the app knows that this is a new conversation, or this conversation that's been going on. So in fact, what I'll do is I'll come out of this. And I'll go to Muganda. And there we go. Wonderful. So now it's created it again. So this time it didn't recreate this entry. It still just has the same old Williams UID, but now it has another one within it for Muganda. And there it is with the same details. And of course, it's created now an outer one for Muganda. And if you open that, you have Williams UID with all the things inside. All right, good. That has worked. I'm going to stop it there. Let's now, the next thing now is to trigger this, rather to get the text that's within here and make this button send data to the database.